Disclaimer: this is a fictional dramatization created for artistic, emotional, and educational storytelling purposes. All characters and events are entirely fictional and created using AI tools. No impersonation, misrepresentation, or harm is intended. The content contains scenes of danger involving child characters. However, no real persons or minors were involved in its production. Grace's Love Stories produces scripted, AI-generated stories that promote, entertain, inspire kindness, and emotional connection. We respect our viewers and strictly adhere to YouTube's policies.
The cold is a constant companion. It lives in the sterile tiles of the hospital floor, seeping up through the thin soles of her worn sneakers. It clings to the air, a sharp, biting scent of antiseptic and bleach that scours the inside of her nose and promises a world wiped clean of mess, of feeling, of life. Clara prefers it this way, a clean, cold, empty world. Her cart is her island, a squeaking, rattling vessel of solitude in the fluorescent-lit sea of the night shift. Mop bucket, spray bottles, a rainbow of rags, the tools of invisibility. She is a ghost in gray scrubs, gliding through silent corridors long after the visitors have gone, long after the important daytime people have clocked out. She cleans up the messes they leave behind. Spilled coffee, muddy footprints, the faint, tragic residue of hurried grief. It is a penance of sorts, a way to feel useful in a body that failed at its most fundamental purpose. The thought arrives, as it always does, unwelcome and sharp, as a shard of glass under the skin. Barren, the word the doctor used. So clinical, so final, defective. The word Daniel, her ex-husband, had used. Not to her face, of course. Never to her face. He was too civilized for that. She'd overheard him on the phone with his brother, his voice a low, pitying murmur that was so much crueler than shouting. It's just defective. You buy a new car, you expect the engine to work, you know? She had been a new car with a broken engine, and he had traded her in. So now she has this. The quiet, the cold, the endless echoing halls of St. Jude's Regional Hospital, a place for the sick and the healing, and she is neither. She is simply present. A shadow that polishes the reflections of others. The rhythm of her work is a prayer. Wipe, spray, scrub, repeat. Don't think, don't feel. Don't remember the phantom weight of a life she was supposed to have. A sudden commotion shatters the monastic silence of the third floor. Pediatrics, her least favorite wing. It's too full of what she has. Lost. Too bright, too loud, even in the dead of night. The pastel murals of smiling cartoon animals feel like a personal mockery. Raised voices echo down the hall, sharp and frustrated. A man's deep rumbling growl of a voice, and the sharper, more authoritative tones of nurses, and beneath it all, a sound that bypasses her ears and goes straight to the hollow space in her chest. A child's scream, not a tantrum. Not a cry for a dropped toy. This is the sound of pure, unadulterated terror. Clara's hands freeze on the handle of her mop. Rule number 1, stay invisible. Rule number 2, do not get involved. People are messy. Their problems are contagious. She learned that the hard way. She starts to push her cart in the opposite direction, toward the quiet safety of the surgical wing. But the screaming continues, raw and desperate. It hooks into her, pulling her back, against her will, against every carefully constructed wall she has built around her heart. She turns. She pushes the cart slowly, its squeaking wheels an apology for her intrusion. She stops at the hallway junction, peering around the corner. The scene is a vortex of contained chaos. A little girl, no older than 4 or 5, is backed into a corner, her tiny body rigid with fear. She has hair, the color of midnight, and eyes so wide they seem to swallow her small pale face. She's not making eye contact with anyone, just staring at a point on the wall, as if seeing horrors there that no one else can. A man stands between her and the two nurses trying to approach. He is a mountain, tall, broad-shouldered, radiating an aura of such ferocious protectiveness that it's a physical force in the room. His dark hair is unruly, his jaw is tight with strain, and his eyes are a startling feral gold, and they are fixed on his daughter with an expression of agonizing helplessness. "Sir, if you'll just let us sedate her," one nurse says, her voice strained with professional patience. "It's for her own good." "She's hysterical." "No." The man's voice is a low growl. "You're not touching her with that. She's a danger to herself," the other nurse insists. Clara flinches at the words. She sees the way they look at the child. Not with compassion, but with clinical annoyance. A problem to be solved. A box to be checked. She knows that look. It's the same look the fertility specialists gave her. The look that said, "This is an unfortunate situation, and you are its primary inconvenience." The little girl isn't hysterical. She's terrified. Can't they see the difference? The father can. She sees it in the desperate clenching of his fists, the way his whole body is a shield. He's losing a battle, and it's killing him. Clara's heart, that dormant, useless organ, gives a painful throb. She should leave. This is not her fight. This is a man, and his child, a family, a world she has been forcibly evicted from. Getting involved is a violation of her own exile. But the little girl lets out another broken, terrified sob, and Clara remembers. She remembers sitting in a sterile office, the doctor's words washing over her, and Daniel beside her, his hand not reaching for hers, his face a mask of disappointment. No one saw her terror. No one saw her pain. They only saw the failure, the problem. She looks at the girl. She looks at the father, a cornered animal trying to protect his cub, and she makes a choice. I will not be like them. It's a small rebellion, a quiet promise made to the ghost of the woman she used to be. Her hands move automatically, reaching into the side pocket of her janitorial cart. Her fingers close around a small, plastic bottle with a bright pink cap, a cheap, dollar store bottle of bubbles. She bought it on a whim one day, a tiny, foolish act of self-care. Sometimes, on her break, she'd go out to the empty ambulance bay and blow them, watching them shimmer and float away into the darkness, each one a tiny, perfect, temporary sphere of beauty. It was her secret. A small, silly joy in a joyless life. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, a frantic bird beating against its cage. This is a mistake. She unscrews the cap, her fingers clumsy. The little plastic wand comes out, dripping with soap. She lifts it to her lips. She doesn't step into the fray. She stays on the edge, a ghost in the periphery. She takes a soft breath and blows. A stream of iridescent spheres floats out from her hiding spot, drifting on the sterile, recycled air of the hallway. They are silent, magical things. They catch the harsh fluorescent light and fracture it into rainbows. One bubble drifts lazily past the tense nurses. Another floats toward the ceiling. A third, perfect and shimmering, drifts right into the little girl's line of sight. At the screaming stops. It's so abrupt. The silence that follows is deafening. The girl's wide, terrified eyes blink. She watches the bubble float. Her small, trembling body goes utterly still. Clara blows again. A softer, longer stream. More bubbles. Dozens of them. They fill the small space. A silent, glittering armada. The little girl's head turns. She follows them with her eyes. A tiny, choked gasp escapes her lips. Not of fear, but of wonder. She lifts a trembling hand, her fingers uncurling from a tight fist. She reaches. Her fingertip touches a bubble. Pop. A tiny, wet speck is left on her skin. Awe dawns on her face. The tension in the hallway evaporates like mist. The nurses stand frozen, their mouths slightly agape, and the man, the father, he turns his head slowly, his feral golden eyes scanning the hallway until they land on her, on Clara. She freezes, caught in his gaze. He looks at the bubble wand in her hand, then back at her face. The hostility is gone, but what replaces it is something far more unnerving, an intensity so profound. It feels like a physical touch. It's not gratitude. It's not relief. It's recognition. A piercing, questioning stare that seems to see right through her gray scrubs, past the janitor, past the barren woman, and into the very core of her. She feels her cheeks flush, a wave of heat rising up her neck. She has been seen. The little girl takes a hesitant step, then another, moving through the slowly descending bubbles. She reaches her father's leg and clings to it, her eyes still fixed on the shimmering spheres. The man doesn't break eye contact with Clara. He stoops down, his movements fluid and powerful, and scoops his daughter into his arms. She buries her face in his neck, one small hand still pointing at the last few bubbles settling on the floor. He gives Clara a single, sharp nod, a dismissal, a thank you, a warning. She can't tell. Then he turns and walks away down the hall, his daughter held securely against his chest. The sound of his footsteps is heavy, decisive, and then gone. The nurses exchange a baffled look, shrug, and go back to their station. Clara is left alone in the hallway, the scent of cheap bubble soap mixing with the ever-present smell of antiseptic. Her heart is still racing. She screwed the cap back on the bottle, her hands shaking. She broke her own rules. She got involved, and for one terrifying, exhilarating moment, she had not been invisible. She doesn't see them again for 3 nights. Each shift, she feels a strange hum of anticipation in the air, a wariness that makes the fine hairs on her arms stand up. She cleans the pediatric wing with extra care, her eyes scanning the empty waiting chairs, listening for the sound of heavy footsteps. But there is nothing. She tells herself it's a relief, a return to the safety of her routine, her invisibility. She lies. The memory of the man's golden eyes is burned into her mind. The image of the little girl's wonder-filled face is a bright spot in the gray landscape of her thoughts. On the 4th night, the world tilts on its axis. It starts with a different kind of commotion. Not in pediatrics, but down near the ambulance bay. Shouts, the frantic energy of a real emergency. Clara is cleaning the waiting room, her back to the automatic doors. They swish open, letting in a blast of cold, damp air that smells of rain and pine needles. We need a gurney now. What the hell is it? Some kind of animal. Huge. Looks like a wolf. Got hit by a truck out on River Road, but it's still alive. Clara's blood runs cold. She turns slowly. 2 paramedics and a security guard are wrestling with something on a stretcher. It's a writhing mass of dark fur and panicked strength. A low, pained growl rumbles through the room, a sound of pure agony and defiance. It is a wolf, an enormous one, bigger than any she's ever seen in pictures. Its fur is the color of a stormy night sky, matted with blood along one flank. Its leg is bent at an unnatural angle, but it's the eyes that stop her breath. Amid the pain and fear, they gleam with an impossible, shocking intelligence, and they are gold, the same shade of searing, feral gold, as the man from the hallway. Her mind refuses to make the connection. It's impossible. A coincidence. Her tired brain playing tricks on her. Get it out of here! A doctor yells, emerging from a trauma bay. We're not a vet clinic. Call animal control. They can deal with it. They're 30 minutes out, Doc. Things bleeding all over your floor. Then put it in the old utility room until they get here. And get that mess cleaned up. He points a finger, and his gaze lands on Clara. You. Now. She nods, her body moving on autopilot. She grabs her cart, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and a strange, terrifying dread. They wrestle the gurney down a short hallway and shove it into a small, windowless room used for storage. It's little more than a closet, filled with discarded equipment and the smell of dust and decay. They slide the wolf, still strapped to the gurney, inside and slam the heavy door, the bolt shooting home with a loud, final thunk. The security guard stands outside, arms crossed. Thing gives me the creeps. Clara forces herself to work, mopping up the trail of blood. Each swipe of the mop feels heavy, wrong. The coppery smell fills her senses. This blood feels different. Too much like human blood. Her thoughts are racing. A wolf, with golden eyes, an intelligent gaze, found on River Road, the same road that leads out of town and up into the deep, wild forests of the national park. The man and his daughter had vanished. Could they have been heading that way? It's insane. A fantasy. She's a janitor, not a character in a fairy tale, but she can't shake the feeling. That hum of wrongness, of a secret hiding in plain sight. She finishes cleaning, her movements stiff and robotic. The paramedics leave. The doctor is busy. The security guard gets a call and walks off, grumbling about a disturbance in the psych ward. The hallway is empty, silent, except for the heavy metal door of the utility room. She's alone with it. With him. Her heart pounds a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Walk away, Clara. This is the definition of not your problem. But her feet are glued to the floor. She thinks of the agony in those golden eyes. The same agony she saw in the man's face as he watched his daughter scream. Animal control will come. They'll see a large, aggressive, injured predator. They'll put him down. It's the logical, sensible outcome. A pained whine seeps from under the door. It's a low, guttural sound of misery that bypasses all her logic and hits her straight in that hollow place in her chest. It's the same sound of helplessness she feels every morning when she wakes up alone. I will not be like them. The promise again. A promise to a scared child. A promise to herself. She looks up and down the empty corridor. Her shift is over in 10 minutes. Everyone is gone or occupied. This is madness. Absolute, job-losing, life-ruining madness. She walks to the door. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the bolt. It's heavy and stiff. It slides back with a loud, grating groan that seems to echo through the entire hospital. She pulls the door open a crack. The smell hits her first. Musk and pine and wet fur and blood. The smell of the wild. The wolf is on the floor now, having somehow gotten off the gurney. He's dragged himself into the corner, his injured leg tucked beneath him. He lifts his head, and those intelligent golden eyes fix on her. There's no growl, no bared teeth, just a deep, weary pain and a flicker of recognition. "Hello," she whispers, her voice barely a breath. The wolf's ear twitches. He lets out a soft huff of air through his nostrils. You're him, aren't you?" She asks the impossible question. He doesn't answer, of course. He's a wolf. But he doesn't look away. He just watches her, his gaze steady, waiting. Animal control will be here soon. They will come with catch poles and tranquilizer guns in a metal box. They will see a monster. She sees a father. She sees the man who held his terrified daughter and looked at her with eyes that saw more than a janitor. "I can't leave you here," she says. More to herself than to him. The decision solidifies in her chest, a terrifying, exhilarating weight. She thinks of her truck in the parking lot. It's old, beaten up, but it has a camper shell on the back. She thinks of her cabin, 20 miles out of town, nestled on the edge of the state forest, the one place she feels truly safe, truly alone, her sanctuary, and she's about to invite a wolf into it. "Okay," she whispers, her mind racing. "Okay, we have to be quiet. Can you walk?" The wolf makes a low noise in his throat and tries to push himself up. He puts weight on his good legs, but his injured one gives way, and he collapses with a sharp yelp of pain. Her heart constricts. He can't walk. She looks around the room, and the gurney. It's too high, too awkward. Her eyes land on her own janitorial cart, the big, deep, plastic bin for trash and laundry. It's on wheels. It's undignified. It's ridiculous. It's their only chance. "I'm so sorry about this," she says, dragging the cart into the room. She tips it on its side. "You have to get in. Please. You have to trust me." The wolf watches her, his breathing shallow and ragged. He seems to understand. With a tremendous effort of will, he begins to drag himself, inch by painful inch, toward the cart. He whimpers as his broken leg scrapes against the floor, but he doesn't stop. He pulls himself into the cart, curling his huge body into the cramped space. He has to bend his neck at an awkward angle to fit. His golden eyes look up at her, trusting, vulnerable. Her breath catches in her throat. She tips the cart upright. It's heavy, so heavy. She throws a few dirty laundry bags from the hallway over him, obscuring his shape. It looks, for all the world, like she's just taking out the trash. Her heart is a jackhammer. Every squeak of the wheels is a gunshot in the silent hallway. She pushes the cart toward the service elevator, her eyes darting everywhere at once. The elevator dings. The doors slide open. Empty. She pushes the cart inside and hits the button for the parking garage. The doors slide shut, encasing them in a small metal box. Alone with the wolf. He whines softly from under the laundry. "Shh," she soothes, her hand hovering over the bags. "It's okay. We're almost there. Just hang on." She can feel the heat radiating from his body, the feverish warmth of his pain. She has stolen a wolf from a hospital, a wolf with the eyes of a desperate father. The life she knew, the quiet, gray, invisible life is over. She just pushed it out the door in a laundry cart. The drive to her cabin is a blur of adrenaline and terror. She backed her truck up to the loading dock, a place she had no business being, and somehow, with him pushing with his good legs and her pulling and half lifting, they got him out of the cart and into the covered bed of the truck. The whole time, she expected sirens, shouting, the firm hand of a security guard on her shoulder. But nothing happened. She drove with shaking hands, well under the speed limit, her eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The 20-mile drive felt like 1,000. With every bump in the road, a soft, pained sound came from the back, and each one was a knife in her gut. Her cabin is small, rustic, and isolated. It had been her grandfather's, her only inheritance. It sits at the end of a long dirt driveway, surrounded by a dense wall of pine and fir trees. Her neighbors are squirrels and the occasional deer. It is her fortress of solitude. Getting him inside is another agonizing struggle. He's heavier than he looks, a dead weight of muscle and bone. She lays an old quilt on the floor in front of the cold hearth, and he collapses onto it, shivering despite the mild night. His breathing is shallow. The wound on his flank, a nasty gash that looks suspiciously like it was made by more than just a truck bumper, is sluggishly seeping blood through the matted fur. Clara's panic begins to subside, replaced by a wave of overwhelming responsibility. What has she done? She has an injured, possibly dangerous wild animal in her house. She is not a vet. She has no idea what to do. She looks at him, curled on the quilt, and the fear recedes again. He's not a monster. He's a patient. She fills a bowl with water and places it near his head. He lifts his head weakly and laps at it, his tongue rough against the ceramic. Next, the wound. She gets her first aid kit, the one she keeps for falls and splinters. It feels pathetically inadequate. I'm going to try and clean this, she says softly, approaching him slowly. It's probably going to hurt. I'm sorry. He watches her with those unnervingly intelligent eyes. He doesn't growl or flinch away as she kneels beside him. He just lies still, as if granting her permission. Her hands are trembling as she gently parts the fur around the gash. It's deep, ugly. She bites her lip and starts to clean it with antiseptic wipes. He shudders, a low whine rumbling in his chest, but he holds perfectly still. It's an act of trust, so profound it makes her ache. Daniel never trusted her that much, not even with his feelings. She bandages the wound as best she can with gauze pads and medical tape, her fingers sticky and clumsy in his thick fur. It's a messy, amateur job, but it's better than nothing. When she's done, she sinks back on her heels, exhausted. The adrenaline has worn off, leaving her feeling hollow and shaky. The wolf, the man, huffs a soft breath and lets his head rest back on the quilt. His golden eyes close. The cabin is silent, save for the sound of his ragged breathing and the ticking of the old mantel clock. Days begin to fall into a strange new routine. She goes to work at the hospital, her stomach in knots, expecting to be met by police at the door, but no one says a word. The official story, she overhears, is that the wolf escaped before animal control arrived. A mystery. A shrug. They have more important things to worry about. Her invisibility, for once, has worked in her favor. Then she drives home, a sense of urgency pulling her forward, her car filled with supplies. Canned chicken, ground beef, more bandages, the strongest painkillers she could buy over the counter. She spends her days caring for her silent houseguest. He eats what she gives him, his appetite slowly growing. He lets her change his dressings, holding unnaturally still for her touch. He sleeps most of the time, a deep, healing sleep, and she talks to him. She doesn't mean to, at first. But the silence of the cabin, once a comfort, is now filled with his presence, and it demands to be acknowledged. I probably lost my mind, she says one afternoon, sitting on the floor a few feet from him, watching the rain streak down the window pane. Bringing a wolf home. My grandfather would think I'd finally gone crazy. The wolf's ear twitches. He opens one golden eye to look at her. He loved this place, she continues, a warmth spreading through her chest at the memory. He taught me how to find north, how to identify birds by their song. He said the woods don't judge you. She finds herself telling him things she hasn't spoken aloud to anyone. She tells him about Daniel, about the years of trying, the hope that curdled into a monthly grief. She tells him about the diagnosis, the cold, clinical words that severed her life in two. He said it wasn't my fault, she whispers, her voice thick. But he looked at me like I was broken, like I was less. And then he left. And I guess I started to believe him. The wolf makes a soft noise in his throat, a low, gentle rumble. He shifts, dragging himself a little closer to her. She looks at him, at his massive form, his wildness contained within the four walls of her home. And she doesn't feel fear. She feels seen, heard, in a way that transcends words. Something impossible is happening. The wound is healing. Too fast. What should have taken weeks, maybe months, is knitting itself back together with unnatural speed. By the fifth day, the deep gash is a closed pink line. By the 7th, it's just a scar, already being covered by new, dark fur. His limp is almost gone. She can't explain it. She tries to rationalize it. Animals heal faster. Maybe his immune system is extraordinary. But she knows, in a deep, intuitive part of herself, that this is not normal. One afternoon, she comes home from the store to find the bandage she'd put on him that morning lying on the floor beside the quilt. It's not torn off. It's neatly removed and folded. A cold dread and a thrilling wonder wash over her in equal measure. Her breath catches in her chest. No animal could do that. She looks at the wolf. He's sitting up, watching her, his head tilted. The place where the bandage was is completely healed. Not even a scar remains. How? She breathes, her voice shaking. He just looks at her, his golden eyes holding a universe of secrets. That night, she can't sleep. Her mind is a carousel of impossible thoughts. She sits in the armchair, a book open on her lap, but she doesn't read a word. She just watches him. He sleeps peacefully on the quilt, his massive chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. The fear is gone now, completely replaced by a profound sense of comfort. She feels safer with this giant, mysterious creature in her living room than she has in years. Her eyelids grow heavy. The book slides from her lap. She drifts off in the chair, her head lolling to one side. She wakes with a start, not sure what woke her. The cabin is dark, the fire having burned down to embers. A chill has settled in the air. She's not in the chair. She's on the floor, on the other end of the quilt, a thick wool blanket tucked around her. Her heart stutters. She didn't put the blanket there. She sits up, her eyes adjusting to the gloom. The wolf is lying a few feet away, his head on his paws, but his eyes are open, watching her. She should be terrified. She should be scrambling away, running out the door. A wild animal has been moving around her, covering her with blankets while she slept, but she feels a pull toward him, an invisible string connecting them. Hesitantly, slowly, she reaches out a hand. She stops a few inches from his head, her fingers trembling, but he doesn't move. He just watches her hand, then lifts his gaze to her face. It's a question, an invitation. She closes the distance. Her fingertips brush against the fur on his head, just behind his ear. It's thick and surprisingly soft. The moment her skin touches his fur, a jolt goes through her. Not a shock of static, but a deep, resonant hum of energy, of warmth, of rightness. It flows up her arm and settles directly in the center of her chest, in that hollow place that has been empty for so long. The wolf shudders under her touch, a deep sigh escaping his lips. He leans into her hand, a clear, unambiguous gesture of pleasure and acceptance. She strokes his head, her fear melting away into a wave of tenderness so powerful it brings tears to her eyes. This is crazy. This is impossible. But it's also the most real thing she has felt in years. The world outside her cabin ceases to exist. There is only the warmth of the embers, the soft texture of his fur beneath her hand, and the steady, silent communication passing between them. She doesn't know how long she sits there, petting him, but eventually, exhaustion claims her again. She lies back down on the quilt, curling up under the blanket. She falls asleep to the sound of his steady breathing, feeling protected, cherished, and utterly, completely baffled. The fragile peace of their strange cohabitation is shattered by the sound of a car engine. Clara jerks awake. It's mid-morning. Sunlight streams through the windows. The sound is getting closer, rumbling up her long dirt driveway. No one ever comes here. Panic, cold and sharp, lances through her. The wolf, she has to start calling him something in her head. He's more than... The wolf is instantly on his feet. He's no longer the wounded patient. He is fully recovered, radiating a quiet, lethal power. A low growl begins deep in his chest, a sound that vibrates through the floorboards. No. Shh. It's okay, she whispers, scrambling to her feet. Get in the bedroom. Go. Now. He looks at her, then at the door, his golden eyes narrowed. He clearly doesn't want to leave her, but with a last, reluctant glance, he obeys, padding silently into her bedroom, and out of sight, a car door slams. Clara's heart plummets into her stomach. She knows that sound. The solid, arrogant thunk of a luxury sedan's door. She peers through the window, and her blood turns to ice. It's Daniel. He's standing by his silver BMW, looking at her small, rustic cabin with an expression of barely veiled disgust. He's wearing a perfectly tailored suit, looking utterly out of place in the wilderness. What is he doing here? How did he even find her? A knock on the door, sharp, impatient. She takes a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic fluttering in her chest. She smooths down her t-shirt and runs a hand through her messy hair. She is the ghost of St. Jude's. She is the woman who steals wolves. She can handle this. She opens the door. Daniel, she says, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. Clara. He gives her a once-over, his lips curling into a faint, pitying smile. Well, this is rustic. I see you've really embraced the whole hermit lifestyle. What do you want? She asks, not moving from the doorway, blocking his entry. Business, unfortunately, he says, holding up a leather portfolio. The sale of the house is final, but they found a discrepancy in one of the old property line documents your grandfather filed. I need your signature to clear it up. Lawyers are screaming about it. The house. Their house. The one he couldn't wait to sell so he could wash his hands of their shared life. You could have mailed it, she says. I was in the area. He lies smoothly. Thought I'd do you the courtesy of bringing it in person. Can I come in? Or are we going to do this on the porch, like savages? He takes a step forward, expecting her to move. The old Clara would have. She would have stepped back, offered him coffee, apologized for the state of her life. This Clara stands her ground. We can do it right here, she says. A flicker of annoyance crosses his face. He's not used to her saying no. Clara, don't be difficult. It's damp out here. Just let me in for 5 minutes. He pushes past her, his shoulder bumping hers. A casual assertion of his right to occupy any space he chooses. He steps inside and stops, his nose wrinkling. What is that smell? Did a raccoon die in here? It's the scent of the wolf. The wild, musky scent she's grown so accustomed to. She barely notices it anymore. From the bedroom, the low growl starts again, louder this time. A deep, guttural threat. Daniel freezes. What was that? I have a dog, she says quickly, her heart pounding. Sounds more like a bear. He scoffs, but he looks uneasy. He opens his portfolio on the small kitchen table. Just sign here, here, and here. He's standing too close. He exudes an aura of smug ownership, as if his presence here still gives him some claim over her. He talks down to her, explaining the legal jargon in a condescending tone that makes her skin crawl. You know, he says, leaning against the counter as she signs the papers with a shaky hand. I was worried about you out here all alone, but I see you're fine, in your own way. I am fine, she says, her voice tight. It's for the best, you know, he continues, his voice softening into that faux sympathetic tone she hates. What happened with us? I met someone. She's pregnant. We're having a boy. The words are a physical blow. They hit her with the force of a fist, knocking the air from her lungs. Of course he did. Of course it was that easy for him. To find a new car, a new engine. One that works. She feels the familiar cold creep over her, the old shame. The feeling of being broken, worthless. Her hand trembles, and she drops the pen. It clatters on the floor. As she bends to pick it up, Daniel reaches out and puts a hand on her shoulder. I just want you to be happy, Clara. Truly. The touch is a violation. It's a lie. He doesn't want her to be happy. He wants her to be a sad story that makes his new life seem even brighter. And at that moment, the bedroom door swings open. The wolf steps into the doorway. He is silent. He doesn't need to make a sound. His presence fills the small cabin, sucking all the air out of it. He is pure, primal power. His dark fur seems to bristle with contained fury. His muscles are coiled springs, and his golden eyes are fixed on Daniel's hand on Clara's shoulder. They are not the eyes of an animal. They are the eyes of a judge, a jury, and an executioner. Daniel snatches his hand back as if he's been burned. He stumbles backward, his face draining of all color. What? What the hell is that? He stammers, his voice a high-pitched squeak. That's not a dog. The wolf takes a single, deliberate step forward. A growl tears from his throat, a sound that isn't just a warning, it's a promise of violence. It shakes the very foundations of the cabin. The coffee mugs on the shelf rattle. He moves to stand between Clara and Daniel, a living shield of muscle and teeth. He doesn't look at her. His entire being is focused on the threat. On Daniel. Daniel makes a sound, a pathetic whimper of terror. He scrambles backward, tripping over his own expensive shoes. He crabs his way to the door, his arrogance and composure shattered. You're crazy, he shrieks, his voice cracking. You're a crazy bitch with a monster. He fumbles the door open and falls out onto the porch, then scrambles to his feet and runs, leaving his leather portfolio on her table. He dives into his BMW, the engine roaring to life. Tires spin in the dirt, and he tears down the driveway, a cloud of dust in his wake. Silence descends. Clara is trembling, her body flooded with a mix of terror and a fierce, unfamiliar surge of triumph. She looks at the wolf. They're her protector. He turns his head to look at her, the growls subsiding. He gives a soft whine and takes a shaky step toward her. Then he collapses. He hits the floor with a heavy thud, a sharp cry of pain torn from his throat. The effort of his protective display, the sudden, violent movement, was too much. His back leg, the one that had seemed so perfectly healed, is bleeding again. A dark, wet patch is spreading through his fur. Oh God, she breathes, the triumph instantly replaced by icy fear. She drops to her knees beside him. He's panting, his eyes glazed with pain. He sacrificed his own recovery for her, to protect her from a man who had only ever hurt her with words. A wave of ferocious love and gratitude washes over her, so potent it steals her breath. He protected her. Now she has to protect him. It's okay, she murmurs, her voice thick with unshed tears. She presses her hands against the wound, trying to staunch the fresh flow of blood. It's okay. I've got you. You're safe. You saved me. She leans over him, her body instinctively shielding his, as if Daniel might reappear at any moment. She is no longer the victim. She is no longer afraid. She is a guardian. She holds him, whispering reassurances, her hands covered in his blood, her heart full of a terrible, beautiful certainty. This creature, this mystery, this protector, he is hers, and she is his. That night, a fever takes him. He shivers violently on the quilt, despite the roaring fire she's built in the hearth. His panting is shallow, his whining low and constant. The reopened wound on his leg is hot to the touch, inflamed and angry. She's terrified. She did her best to clean and rebandage it, but she knows it's not enough. He needs more than her clumsy first aid. He needs a doctor, a vet, something. But she can't take him anywhere. She can't explain him, so she does the only thing she can. She tends to him. She brings cool, damp cloths from the kitchen and lays them on his forehead, on his neck. He's burning up. His fur is damp with sweat. "It's okay," she whispers over and over, the words a mantra against the encroaching panic. "Just hold on. Please, just hold on." She sits beside him, her hand resting on his back, feeling the tremors that rack his powerful body. She feels so helpless, so useless. Just like she did in the doctor's office. Just like she did when Daniel left. No, she refuses that feeling. She is not useless. She stays with him as the hours tick by. Midnight comes and goes. The wind howls outside, rattling the window panes. Sometime around 2 a.m, it gets worse. He begins to writhe. A deep, guttural cry of agony is torn from him, a sound that makes every hair on her body stand on end. His body convulses, arching off the floor. "What is it? What's wrong?" she cries, pulling back, her heart seizing with fear. And then she hears it, a sound that does not belong in this world, a wet, sickening crack. The sound of a bone breaking. He cries out again, a long, strangled howl of pain. Another crack echoes in the silent room. And another. She scrambles backward, her mind refusing to process what her eyes are seeing. His form is changing. The shape of him is wrong, twisting, elongating. His snout seems to shrink, pulling back into his face. His legs bend and snap, reforming into new, horrifying angles. Fur recedes like a tide, vanishing into pale skin that shimmers with sweat. She's screaming. She doesn't realize it at first, but a thin, high-pitched sound of terror is coming from her own throat. It's a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by stress and grief. It has to be, but the cracking of bone continues, the whimpers of pain slowly morphing from animal to something horribly, recognizably human. In a final, violent shudder, the transformation is complete. The cabin falls silent. Where the giant, dark-furred wolf had been lying in agony, there is now a man, a naked, wounded man, curled on his side on the quilt. His body slick with sweat, his dark hair is plastered to his forehead. A deep, angry gash mars the muscled flesh of his thigh, and she knows him. It's him, the man from the hospital. The father with the feral golden eyes. Clara's scream dies in her throat. Her mind goes completely blank. The world shrinks to a single point of absolute, stunning impossibility. She can't breathe. She can't think. She can only stare, her body frozen in a rictus of shock. The man on her floor is unconscious, his breathing evening out now that the horrific ordeal is over. Her training, her instinct for self-preservation, screams at her to run, to get out of the house, get in her truck, and drive until the world makes sense again. But she can't move. Her feet are rooted to the floorboards. Slowly, numbly, as if in a dream, she gets to her feet. She walks to the linen closet and pulls out the thickest, heaviest blanket she owns. She walks back to him, her movements jerky, robotic. She gently covers his naked body. His skin is fever-hot to the touch. She backs away and collapses into the armchair, pulling her knees to her chest. She wraps her arms around herself, trying to stop the violent shaking that has taken over her body. A wolf, a man, a shifter. The words don't fit in her reality. They are concepts from cheap paperbacks and late-night movies. They are not supposed to be bleeding on her grandfather's quilt. She stays like that for hours, watching him, waiting for the sun to rise, praying that the light will burn this madness away and reveal it all to be a terrible dream. But when the first gray fingers of dawn creep through the window, he is still there. A man. He wakes slowly, A low groan escapes his lips. He shifts, his eyes fluttering open. They are gold. Dazed and filled with pain, but undeniably, impossibly gold. His gaze sweeps the room, confused, before it lands on her. Huddled in the chair, recognition dawns. And with it, a deep, weary resignation. He doesn't look surprised to see her. He just looks sad. He tries to sit up, then hisses in pain as his injured leg protests. He falls back against the quilt. "Be still," Clara hears herself say, her voice a dry, rusty whisper. "You'll hurt yourself." He looks at the blanket covering him, at his own pale, human hands. He closes his eyes for a moment, a wave of something shame, regret, passing over his face. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice rough, hoarse from the screaming. "You weren't supposed to see this." Clara just stares, speechless. Her mind is a riot of questions, but none of them can find their way to her tongue. "My name is Ryan," he says, his golden eyes meeting hers. They are pleading with her. Pleading for what? Understanding? Belief? The girl. She manages to choke out, the first coherent thought to surface. The little girl at the hospital. A flicker of warmth, of love, enters his gaze. "Luna, my daughter. She's safe. Luna." A beautiful name. What are you?" she whispers, the question hanging in the air between them, fragile and terrifying. Ryan takes a deep, ragged breath. "What you saw. I'm a shifter, a werewolf, if you want the storybook term." He says it simply, a statement of fact, as if he were telling her his profession. Clara feels a wave of dizziness. She grips the arms of the chair to steady herself. "I was shot," he continues, his voice low. "On our land. Hunters. They got too close to my family. I was protecting Luna. I shifted to lead them away from her. They hit me. I ran. I don't know how I ended up near the hospital. I just knew I had to get somewhere. Safe." He looks at her, and the intensity is back in his gaze. The same piercing look from the hospital hallway. "And then I smelled you," he says, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I was in the cage, dying, and I smelled you through the door. It was like a beacon. It cut through the pain. Her scent of cheap soap and floor cleaner, when you helped me." He says, "When you touched me, something settled. A bond. I didn't understand it. I thought the fever was making me crazy. Bond. The word hangs in the air. In my kind," he says, struggling to explain, his words halting. "We have one, a destined partner. We call them mates. My mate, Luna's mother. She died 2 years ago." His voice breaks on the words, thick with old grief. He takes another breath, forcing himself to continue. "I never thought. It's not supposed to happen twice. It's a legend, a myth, a second chance." He looks at her, his golden eyes raw with a vulnerability that strips her bare. "And then I found you, or you found me. Mate." The word lands in the center of her chest, not with a shock, but with a profound, terrifying click of recognition, the pull she felt. The impossible trust, the jolt of energy when she touched him. The feeling of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. It wasn't madness. It was this, a fated connection to a man who turns into a wolf. It's too much. Her carefully constructed world of gray, quiet, solitude has not just been cracked, it has been atomized. Myths are real. Monsters are real. And one of them is lying on her floor, telling her they are destined to be together. She stands up, her legs unsteady. She needs air. She needs space. She turns and walks to the kitchen, putting the physical barrier of the counter between them. She grips the edge, her knuckles white. She stares out the window at the familiar pine trees, trying to find her footing in a world that has suddenly turned to quicksand. He says nothing. He just lets her go, giving her the space she so desperately needs. She can feel his golden eyes on her back, patient, sorrowful, and waiting. The silence in the cabin stretches, thin and taut. It's filled with the impossible truth, with the scent of blood and magic and rain. Clara's mind is a frantic scramble. She tries to apply logic, to find a rational explanation, but there is none. A man transformed into a wolf in front of her. He healed from a gunshot wound in days. He is telling her they are fated mates. Every instinct she has honed for years, the instinct to flee, to hide, to protect her fragile peace, screaming at her, "Run!" But her feet stay planted, because beneath the terror, beneath the shock, a different feeling is stirring. A quiet, stubborn seedling of something else. Hope. The thought is so foreign, so dangerous. She immediately tries to crush it. Hope is what gets you hurt. Hope is the prelude to disappointment. Ryan finally breaks the silence, his voice still rough. "I will leave. As soon as I can walk, I'll be gone. You won't have to see me again. You can forget any of this ever happened." His words are a release, a key to her cage. He's giving her an out. He's offering her back her quiet, safe, empty life. All she has to do is accept it, and she can't. The thought of him leaving, of the cabin falling silent again, of her life returning to its gray, cold routine, it's unbearable. She turns around slowly to face him. He looks broken, not just by his injury, but by a grief so profound it seems to weigh down his very soul. He's trying to push her away, to protect her from his world, from his own pain. He's doing what Daniel did, deciding what's best for her, trying to dismiss her. But where Daniel's dismissal was born of selfishness, Ryan's is born of a selfless, protective instinct, and the old Clara, the one who believed she was broken, would have let him. She would have nodded and accepted her banishment. But she is not the old Clara. She is the woman who faced down her ex-husband, the woman who tended to a wolf, the woman who felt that jolt of connection and knew it was real. "No," she says, her voice quiet but firm. Ryan looks at her, confused. "No, no," she repeats, taking a step toward him. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to decide what I deserve or what I can handle." She walks around the counter, closing the distance between them until she's standing by the hearth, looking down at him. "My life," she says, her voice gaining strength, "was quiet, and it was safe. And it was empty, for the first time in years. Since you arrived, it hasn't been empty." She gestures around the small room. "This is insane. It's impossible. And it's the most real thing that has ever happened to me. You think I'm just going to let you walk away from that?" A flicker of something astonishment, hopedances in his golden eyes. "Clara, my world is dangerous. I carry ghosts. I can't ask you to be a part of that. I can't lose someone else. I can't do that to you. You're not doing anything to me," she insists, her voice rising with a passion she didn't know she possessed. "I am making a choice. I chose to help you at the hospital. I chose to bring you here, and I'm choosing to stay. You don't get to take that choice away from me." He stares at her, speechless. She kneels down beside him, wincing when she sees the raw, angry wound on his thigh. This is real. His pain is real. "Your daughter," she says softly, the thought of the little girl with the midnight hair grounding her. "Luna." "You said she's safe." He nods, his throat working. "With my beta, my second in command. Our pack. Our home is deep in the forest. She's waiting for me." His voice grows thick with longing. She's been asking for someone. He told me on the phone, before the hunters. Asking for who? Clara prompts gently. Ryan looks at her, his gaze full of a new kind of wonder. The bubble lady. The words land in her heart and bloom. The bubble lady. The little girl who had lost her mother was asking for her. Everything crystallizes in that one perfect moment. The fear, the doubt, the years of feeling useless and empty, it all falls away, replaced by a fierce, undeniable purpose. She is not broken. She is not barren. She is the bubble lady. Take me with you, she says, the words leaving her lips before she has a chance to second-guess them. Ryan's breath hitches. What? When you're well enough to go back, take me with you, she says again, her gaze unwavering. I want to meet her, properly. I want to see your home. Clara, you don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do, she whispers, reaching out, her hand hovering over his. I'm asking for a world that isn't gray. I'm asking for a world where I'm not invisible. She finally lets her fingers touch his. The same jolt of warmth, of rightness, floods through her. I think I've been waiting for you too. Even if I didn't know it. A single tear escapes his eye and traces a path through the grime on his cheek. I thought I was going to die in that cage, he confesses, his voice a raw whisper. And my only thought was that I would never see my daughter again. And then you came. And for the first time since her mother died, I felt peace. His confession cracks open the last of her reservations. He leans up on his elbows, ignoring the pain in his leg. The space between them shrinks, charged with years of loneliness and a few days of impossible connection. He searches her eyes, asking a silent question. She gives him his answer by leaning in. The kiss is not soft. It's not gentle. It is a collision. It's desperate and hungry, and full of a raw, aching need that has been buried in both of them for far too long. It tastes of salt and sorrow, and a wild, fierce hope. It's the sealing of a bond, forged in chaos and compassion. It's a promise of a future she never dared to imagine. It is the feeling of coming home to a place she's never been. 3 months later, the world smells of pine needles, and damp earth and wood smoke. Clara stands on the porch of a large rustic log cabin, a mug of hot coffee warming her hands. This cabin is not her isolated fortress of solitude. It's the heart of a home, nestled in a sprawling, hidden community, deep within the national forest. The air hums with life. The distant sounds of laughter, the rhythmic thud of an axe splitting wood, the happy yelps of children playing, her children, not by blood, but by bond. A pack of wild, rambunctious shifter pups who tumble and play and look to her with a mixture of respect and affection. Her life is no longer quiet. It is loud and messy and vibrant, and she has never felt more at peace. The screen door creaks open behind her. Strong arms wrap around her waist, and a familiar chin rests on her shoulder. You're 1,000 miles away, Ryan murmurs, his warm breath tickling her ear. She leans back against his solid chest, a smile touching her lips. Just thinking. About how crazy this is. He chuckles, a low, warm rumble against her back. It is, but it's our crazy. He is different here, in his own element. The grief and weariness are still there, etched into the lines around his eyes, but they are softer now. He is a leader, respected and strong, but with her, he is just Ryan. Tender, protective, his golden eyes filled with a love so profound it still sometimes takes her breath away. A small figure darts out the door and wraps herself around Clara's legs. Mama, Luna says, her voice still soft but clear as a bell. She looks up, her eyes, so like her father's, shining. Bubbles? Clara's heart clenches, with a love so fierce, it's a physical pain, That hollow space inside her is gone. It has been filled to overflowing by this tiny, miraculous girl who, after weeks of silent observation, had crawled into her lap and whispered her first word in 2 years. Mama. The infertility that had defined and broken her old life is meaningless here. She was never meant for that life, for that man. She was not barren. Her garden was just waiting for the right soil. Of course, sweet girl, Clara says, handing her mug to Ryan. She crouches down. Let's go get the bubbles. Later that week, a trip to the nearest town for supplies is unavoidable. It's the first time Clara has been back to the mundane world since she left it behind. The town feels alien now, loud and gray and strangely flimsy. As they are leaving the grocery store, Ryan's arm possessively around her waist, Luna holding her other hand. She sees him, Daniel. He's coming out of a coffee shop holding hands with a pretty, blonde woman whose pregnant belly is prominent under her stylish coat. He looks smug, content, the picture of the life he always wanted. His eyes scan the street, and then they land on Clara. His smug smile falters. His step hesitates. He is staring at her, but he doesn't seem to recognize her. This is not the mousy, broken woman he abandoned. This Clara is vibrant. Her cheeks are flushed from the cold mountain air. Her eyes are bright, and she stands with a quiet confidence she has never possessed before. She is not wearing gray scrubs, but jeans and a warm, colorful sweater. Daniel's gaze flickers to the powerful, imposing man whose arm is wrapped around her, whose golden eyes are narrowed in a clear, possessive warning. Then his gaze drops to the little girl, clinging to Clara's hand, looking up at her with pure adoration. His face pales. In that moment, he doesn't see what he lost. He sees the sheer, towering magnitude of what he was never ever worthy of. He sees a woman who found a family, a love, a life that so completely eclipsed the pale imitation he offered her that it renders him insignificant. Shame, stark and ugly, flashes across his face. He looks away first, grabbing his wife's arm and pulling her in the opposite direction, a man fleeing the ghost of his own inadequacy. Clara watches him go and feels nothing, no anger, no hurt, no triumph, just the quiet, peaceful emptiness of a chapter that is well and truly closed. Ryan squeezes her waist gently. You okay? She looks up at him, at the fierce love in his eyes, and she smiles. I'm perfect. That evening, they sit on the porch swing, wrapped in a thick blanket against the evening chill. Luna is asleep inside, her dreams no longer haunted. The pack has settled for the night, and a deep, companionable silence has fallen over the valley. Clara rests her head on Ryan's shoulder, watching the first stars begin to prick the deep velvet of the sky. She thinks about the strange, winding path that brought her here, a path of pain and loss and loneliness. She thinks of the moment in the hospital hallway, the choice she made to act, to offer a moment of gentle magic to a terrified child, her compassion, the very thing Daniel had mocked as a weakness, the soft-heartedness he'd despised. It had been her greatest strength all along. It hadn't just saved a wolf bleeding in a back room. It hadn't just soothed a frightened child. It had saved her. It had led her out of the cold, sterile gray and into a world of impossible, vibrant color. It had led her home,